Self-aware millennial.
I'd just say thank you for doing it because,
Yes.
first of all, just the technical effort of putting together a podcast and rounding up people and equipment and timing and scheduling and all of that is huge, and you have undertaken it. And I know you've talked about how you're also then going to Black Lives Matter protests and all that. So your life is very full right now.
Yes.
And, I very much appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's full, but it's worth it. It's so much worth it than the life I had before COVID. So it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like it was meant to be. Or like I'm preparing my hard work that I've had throughout all the years for this type of work to like dedicate to it, because I've already developed the skills of working hard before COVID, so that I can dedicate that same energy to doing the work that I choose to do. If that makes sense.
Isn't it amazing how circumstances bring blessings in disguise?
Yeah.
How we are forced to stop, and even though that the circumstances are not the best ones, we can be the best. We can be, if we choose to, we can be our best under those circumstances.
Yes.
And it calls us to do things that we did not think about, on the other circumstances.
Yeah.
We are called to do this,
Yes.
which is an affirmation of there is togetherness, there is unity, there is love, there is hope.
There was an interesting article I read recently, or maybe I heard it from someone. It might have been on your podcast. But the idea really interested me because it was the whole thing with the virus and the quarantine and having changed people's social and work lives has in a certain way united us. At least there's a commonality of our situation.
Yeah.
If that had not happened, and yet we had what happened in Minnesota happened, and then the protests started, and I figured, well, the protests will last a couple of days, and they'll be local.
Yeah.
It shows you how long somebody can be.
Yeah.
And it kept going and going, and I think that the fact that the country is all bound up in this quarantine contributed to the fact that the country looked at what went on there. This is enough.
Yep.
Enough is enough.
Yeah. They didn't have the distractions of the regular normal life of, having to get back to work and like everything else that is actually important to them, like being put to the side. Like it happens because of the society we live in. It's very, go, very hardworking, very, it's very easy to forget like your personal morals and what you want out of your life because you're trying to make someone else's life better or more richer or whatever. So capitalist society, there you go.
I was just commenting to Jon this morning how everything that is happening is reflecting in my work.
Yeah.
In a way that is very meaningful to me in so many aspects.
Yeah.
And in a way, in a way, and in a clarity that maybe on the other circumstances, it would not have happened this way.
Yeah.
I just feel this urgency to put it out there.
Yeah.
What I'm doing and what I have done, which it was coming for a while now, I'm very happy to say that is relevant to the times and I feel that I'm saying something that is needed at this time.
Yeah.
And that for me is a privilege and an honor to be able to be in that position.
Yeah.
And not in any bit arrogant about it, but humble about me having the opportunity and to take the commitment of doing so.
Yes.
And that really is just like, oh my gosh, this.
If I could also just mention that, her work is so much about her heritage, about who she is, her ancestors, her in Puerto Rico, where she grew up, about the culture there. So culture, genealogy, all of that is crucial.
And being biracial.
Mm-hmm.
That is extremely being biracial, being comfortable finally after being struggling growing up, when you don't know who you are and where do you fit. Choose for me, how am I going to fit? No one telling me who I am, but me telling them, this is who I am. And all of these parts makes this person I am. And all of those parts needs to be celebrated.
Absolutely. Come on.
So I worked for a while a celebration of my African, Europeans, and indigenous roots.
Yeah. I love it.
And how it relates to language and how it relates to my experience growing up and how it relates to what I look like, because I'm using myself, I'm using my own body.
Yeah.
As part of reflecting those things.
Yeah. No, I feel that definitely needing to show and represent yourself as yourself, and for everyone else that sees you to see you exactly as you are. I feel that. That's me. I understand.
Yeah. And so by doing so, like you just said, I'm not alone. There's so many other people.
Yeah.
With so many similar experiences, or either just one race or the other. It applies because it's about the humanity.
Yes.
That we share.
Yes. That's exactly what they try to preach at the protests right now. You can't say that you're for Black lives and then you're not for trans lives. Black trans lives are in that number. It's like you can't just pick and choose which Black lives you are fighting for. And like they say, all lives won't matter until Black lives matter. It's the truth, because there is a form of humanity. Like they're basically trying to say, see my humanity, so that we can all exist in humanity and understand each other together. Until then, you're not seeing my humanity. You're not seeing my humanity. You think I'm inferior. So, yeah.
And I'm telling you, the conversation is going to many, many places. Some of them, the beautiful places, some of them are very ugly places. When you have people commenting about the other like that, that's not my problem.
Yeah.
That is your problem. Or this is a problem of power.
Yeah.
Of getting power back. Or this is a problem of, so many ugly places. And I always respond, this is all our problem. Yes. This is not about the other. This is about us.
Absolutely. Yes. All right.
We had an interesting thing that with our daughter, we had 2 children, grown children. They both live here. And our daughter posted something on Facebook recently that it was fascinating for me to read, because she and I had not talked about this.
No.
But she, of course, is the daughter of a mixed and a white guy. But she's always thought of herself, well, it's complicated.
Yeah.
How you think yourself. Sometimes you think of yourself this way, sometimes depending on your situation, maybe the people that are around you and all that. And she went to school, public schools here in Memphis, which are majority black. And she just would often run into this kind of situation where she might be with some black people and she would say, well, I'm black. I've got that in me. Her grandfather was black, absolutely. And then they would say, no, you're not. During the winter, she'd be lighter. In the summer, she tans so beautifully, looks dark.
Yeah.
She said some guy told her, what was it? He said, girl, you so dark you wouldn't be able to get a cab in New York City.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Yeah. So she has been thinking about this and dealing with it.
And she's lighter than me. She looks very Mediterranean. You know, people think that she's maybe Iranian. But I wasn't aware that sometimes to the point of being bullied, sometimes at school, you know, telling, well, you feeling like she did not fit.
Yeah, she didn't know where to place herself.
This is what I felt when I came to the States. You know, people always confronting me at so many levels, confronting me from appearance to knowledge to my own experience. Daring to be so ignorant to a point of asking very stupid questions.
What kind of questions were you like? You have any that in particular that speak out or stand out in your mind?
Oh, well, yeah, they were talking, and we're talking about the 70s, mid-70s in New York City. People asking me, well, one particular person asking me, at least a few, asking me if we have indoor plumbing, if we have TV, if we have roads and stuff like that. If we, it's just, my God, you know, they didn't even bother to inform themselves before even asking to know. She's coming from Puerto Rico. Let me find out about Puerto Rico. What is in Puerto Rico? You know, they were so proud of their own ignorance as to say that. And then others will say, well, did you get a scholarship? He said, yes. He said, you see, she got a scholarship because she is Puerto Rican. See?
Yeah.
Or she's here because she is a minority. It was never about my work.
Because of your humanity, like you actually just being a person.
Yes. It was never because of me. It was for some other
thing that
situations.
Yeah, there had to be an explanation.
Exactly, because it cannot be possible.
Wait for them to validate something to validate their biases, their ignorances.
That's exactly, and so they use it to explain other people how come there were people of color in a place like Pratt Institute,
which is where she got her graduate.
When I graduated from.
Okay.
You know, I was maybe one of a few colored people, and I was the only Puerto Rican.
That is, especially at that time, I know that must have been.
And it continues. It continues when the glances that we got walking together with our son. It continues when my son was born because he looks more like Jon. That, you know, he's really very light skinned, you know, in the doctor's office, whose child is this one?
Yeah.
I was right behind me, say, it's my baby.
Yeah.
And they would look at me like, they look at him and they look at me like, this cannot be possible.
Must be the nanny.
Yeah. In my house, people me opening the door. My son next to me asking me, where is the lady of the house?
Yeah.
People asking me, do you finish high school?
Oh my gosh. That's terrible.
It was like a wow. It was from all directions.
Do you, because I definitely want you to hone in and like completely finish describing what you want about everything that you're just saying right now. But because I got the questions from like all of my friends and myself that these are going to be brought up again. I promise you. Hold that thought. But I want, just for the listeners, because I mean, obviously, like I want people to understand how we already have a decent engagement, like where I know you guys from, and you know, I want them just to be able to like understand like what you already do with your lives and what you have accomplished outside of your racial privileges or oppressions. Like I want people to know like who you are as people. I want to show them your humanity. So I want to just take this quick time to kind of talk about how I know you guys, and then I also want you to describe and talk about like how y'all met each other, and I also want y'all to kind of talk about your backgrounds, like each of you like growing up, and then up to you meeting each other and everything. We'll go into all that. But for the listeners, I want y'all to know that I actually met Jon first. We did a production of, well, he's actually still doing them, but I've since become a Victory Bell at the World War II Museum. But I did the Polar Express train ride with him. The first year they did it here in New Orleans. And if you don't know what the Polar Express is, there's a book about it. There's also a movie. It's the thing with Tom Hanks, and it's a really cool, cute movie. It's very Christmassy. You probably already know what it is. But Jon was he is the star of the entire show. He plays Santa, or he's well, he is Santa. What am I talking about? I'm not even saying he's playing Santa because he is Santa. But he's that's where I met him, and I was also on that same show, and we just kind of got a chance to know each other. He also got to meet my sister as well, and just kind of understand like who we were as performers. We kind of like goofed off in the train and everything, and he was just kind of sitting there just watching us do our thing, and you know, just observing for the most part, but you know, giving his 2 cents every now and then. And every time we would ask him something, like he had a really, like if we asked him anything, I could ask him like, so Jon, what do you think about the hot chocolate that we're serving? And he'll go into this very in-depth like meaningful description about this hot chocolate that we were serving these kids. And I was just like, okay, yeah, Jon is, yeah, definitely like
Jon.
Yeah. But I loved it, and I was, you know, it's one thing to embody the character of Santa, but it's also like the people that portray Santa. And I feel like, and that's why I'm like, Jon isn't just Santa, he is Santa. What are you talking about? Because like I feel like whether you are playing Santa or you are just being Jon, like you definitely have the same characteristics that a lot of people find in who Santa Claus is to them. So but also the listeners, if you're listening and you're not like watching us talk, he basically looks like Santa most of the time anyway, so it's, you know, it's just very difficult to, not difficult, but it just kind of makes it full circle. It's like the cherry on top of the full ice cream of who Jon is. Like the cherry is him actually looking like Santa. Anyway.
He really embodies the spirit of Santa.
Yes. Yeah.
I can say that because I live with him 24/7. He finds reasons to be more Santa.
Yeah.
Including getting a white car with red interiors.
Yes, the news play.
Because that's what Santa will have.
Love it.
We'll be seeing more soon. Yes.
Wait, what? Say it again?
We'll be seeing more of that soon.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be
Okay.
doing some Santa videos, and so yes.
He even has summer shirts that have a Santa motif in it.
I love it.
I'm surprised he's not wearing one of those shirts.
It's okay. He doesn't have to. Not for this. I mean, we're not talking about how.
Mhm.
Wait, say it again.
And I say, when he's on that, I'm Mrs. Santa.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
I
let me
mean,
just.
Of course.
This is a kind of a point to jump off little and what you were talking about before.
yeah.
I probably am able to pull this off in large part because of my father and my mother.
Mhm.
So they were, and I'll just say that we each got some of those DNA tests,
Mhm.
and you know, said, "Where are you from?" And mine is like 85% Britain, Ireland, Scotland.
Okay.
You know, and the other 15 are the rest of Europe. You
Mhm.
know, so you can't hardly get whiter than I am.
Yeah.
Hers was just amazing. This just rich variety of places. Europe, indigenous in America, and Puerto Rico, and Africa,
Yeah.
all over the
All over the place.
It's
She
just
gets to claim a lot of the world.
a lot of the work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, the kit came for 2 people. He did it for me because he knew where it was coming from. Mine, it was, I knew the basics. And to see that chart, I just felt so much like a citizen of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the kids are loving that because they're sharing all of that too.
They even more so. It's just amazing.
But my background is my dad was born in Oklahoma and my mother in Kentucky.
Mhm.
And all of our ancestors, as far as we've been able to trace back, they are pretty much all farmers and preachers.
Mhm.
There's a few brewmeisters in there, but yeah. So came to the United States back in the 1700s
Mhm.
and settled in and just moved west.
Mhm.
So Dad, though, was actually one of the first to go to college, and that's where he met my mom. It was here in Tennessee.
Mhm.
So they met, they married, they had a baby right away, and then World War II started, and he joined up. Now he was studying to be a minister. He'd gotten his divinity degree and all that. So when he joined the army, he joined as a chaplain and decided to stay in after the war. So he was a career army chaplain, which is kind of an unusual pursuit anyway. But I was born in Trieste, Italy, and then just traveled all over the world. And we finally ended up he retired at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas. And Mom went back to school there, got her library science degree. So education was always a critical part of growing up. I ended up going to New York to go to a misguided tour of law school. Should not have done that. But I did, and it's probably just as well because that's where we met.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It was
So
worth
we lived in the same building,
Yeah.
and it was inevitable we'd run into each other. So that worked out. But my growing up as a dependent of a U.S. Army officer and being pretty privileged,
Mhm.
not we weren't rich, but we didn't want for anything.
Yeah.
So that was it. But there was a lot about him and my mother who were they were both really wonderful people. They were very good. I got my first lesson in race when I was probably 6 years old, and I really remember this. This was fascinating that I can even remember this. But I was with some friends on our front porch, and my dad was standing right behind the screen door watching us play, and we were doing a selection game, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Well, I was doing that, and I said that. And as soon as I said that, Dad opened the door and said, "Come here. We need to talk." And of course, at 6, you don't quite grasp what it is. It was just the word that I'd heard other kids use.
Yeah.
So that's
Wait, okay, because I think I've heard the better version of that any, mini, miny, mo thing. I think I know exactly what you're talking about, though. But keep going. Now,
yeah.
Okay, I got you.
So last time I ever used that word, too.
That's where it came from. I never even, wow. Was that like the originator of like any, mini, miny, mo?
I don't know. I don't know the etymology of that.
Okay,
But
now I'm curious. I'm gonna have to go do my research on that.
yeah, that would be interesting to know. But at any rate, that was my first lesson. And one of the advantages of growing up in the military, though, also, is that the military was segregated. It was integrated. Mm-hmm. So when I went to school, these schools that all the military kids went to, there was a mix of black and white. And I know a lot of my contemporaries here in Memphis who grew up in Memphis. They grew up in an all-white school.
Yes.
That's because back in the 60s, that's simply the way it was.
Yeah.
Even after segregation was abolished, the town still, and to a great extent today, remains segregated. Yeah, so that was my growing up experience, was that my parents didn't put up with any crap. And they always taught us to be kind, to be good. They had terrific senses of humor. And I think out of all of that, somehow I emerged and was able somehow to pull this Santa thing off. But my dad was always the kindest man, and everybody loved him. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm just sort of carrying that forward.
Yeah.
But I haven't said anything about what my actual, money-making occupation is. I'm a journalist. I started with a community newspaper in New York City, which is where we met. And then when we moved to Memphis, I started working at the daily newspaper here. And I was there for 25 years as a reporter and an editor. And then they offered a buyout, and I said, yes, I'll take it. And I'm glad I did. That enabled me to then start doing freelance journalism. Nice. And I was able to do it because people still needed and paid for freelance reporting and feature articles and that sort of thing. That began to decline, but since then, about 3 years ago or so, there also in town is what's called Memphis Magazine. It's one of those monthly city magazines. Mm-hmm. And also what's called the Memphis Flyer, which is an alt weekly. Mm-hmm. It's all part of the same company. And I went to work for them. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm writing for the Memphis Magazine, feature stories, that sort of thing, business stories. And for the Memphis Flyer, which is, a little more edgy and that sort of thing. So, and then they are just very taken with the idea that I take off the entire month of December to go to New Orleans and party. No, that's not quite true. I don't think I worked so hard in my life as when we're down there doing that. Yeah. But it's one of those great things. It's what performers love to do. Yeah. When I'm waiting between performances, I'm just bored silly, unless I'm talking to you. But when we're performing, oh my God, we're on. And it's a great thing. So that's kind of my thing. And, when we got married, then we had our children, and we brought them up in the public schools here. And it's just kind of put our values in them. And they are, reflect that to us. Our daughter has gone to the protests, and we're very, happy and supportive about that, of course. I think we'd probably go if we weren't so much at risk, right? Because, we're older,
Okay, speak for yourself.
Ways to protest. You don't just have to protest in the streets. There are so many other ways you can.
Many other ways. Many other ways.
We don't need to lose either of you right now. We need you. So don't go out to those protests right now. We need your voices as long as possible.
And what I try to do as much as I can is in my work, as a journalist, is making sure that I'll just tell you this briefly. Last September, the magazine had a crisis.
Mm.
Now, Memphis Magazine is one of the most liberal and fair magazines to be found anywhere. We do a lot of coverage of the entire community. We pay special attention to the African American community. I mean, because it's big, it's here.
Yeah.
We always do, every year a issue devoted to Martin Luther King. We've done that ever since we started. So we've always been very comfortable in our liberal outlook.
Mm-hmm.
Last September, we decided to do a cover story on the local mayoral election. And there were three main candidates who were vying for mayor. One was the incumbent, was a white man.
Mm-hmm.
Second person was a former mayor who was African American. And then the third person was a woman who was on the county commission, African American, and known for being an activist. We took down a statue of General Nathan Bedford Forrest 2 or 3 years ago, and she was a big moving force behind that. Mm-hmm. So she'd gotten a lot of publicity, and so she ran. So we decided to put the three of them on the cover, and we hired somebody, a caricaturist, who we've all known and we've used for years, and he's really good. Said, draw caricatures of all these three people, and then we'll put that on the cover. So he did, and we put it on there, and the problem was that only about 3 or 4 people on the magazine staff saw that cover. And if we'd had 1 or 2 more people, especially if one of them were black, they would have looked at it and they would have said, no, the caricature you did of that woman makes her look like this really, it's the worst kind of caricature.
Yeah.
So the world exploded. And we ended up, we have a certain number of magazines that go out by mail to the subscribers, and then others we put on the newsstands. Well, we pulled all the newsstand copies. We just did that. We have a woman who's our CEO, and she wrote a very eloquent apology about it, and I think everybody accepted what she said. But we also underwent some internal discussion about what happened. We've revamped how we do it. We make sure that a lot of eyes see any proposed covers that we have. And we are especially attentive to being diverse and inclusive in everything that we do. But that was a real come to Jesus moment there for a lot of us. Some of us decided we needed to go to the National Civil Rights Museum, which is here in town. It's where Dr. King was assassinated. It's an amazing place, and I recommend it to anybody. I learned so much, and I already know a lot about the civil rights movement. But right. Oh boy, this was something else. But we all, really, and what's happening now, I think, with all the protests and the social changes and the responses of corporations and NASCAR and all of that. A lot of that is coming from the realization that you can't just respond to something with your first feeling. You have to think it through. You have to think, well, why? Why is the Black Lives Matter? That's a kind of a classic. Mm-hmm. When they started saying Black Lives Matter, it was almost a natural thing to say, well, what do you mean? All lives matter, right? Yeah. Well, once you think about it, once you listen to what it means, mm-hmm. And if your mind is open, then you understand perfectly well.
And if you place it in a historical time in which the human life of a Black person was not recognized as such.
Yeah.
If you put it in the context of when the value of a Black person was as much as the value of a cow, of any animal.
Yeah. Or like in the Constitution, said 3/5.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you think about it, when you consider all that in a historical context, that word Black Lives Matters, it means so much more of what anyone, even considerate enlightened, may want to consider. Yeah.
So we, when we met there in New York, I actually remember meeting her in around Thanksgiving of 1978. She does not remember that. She does not remember that.
Briefly, in passing.
I remember. She's very memorable. The following February, we got together again, and our building in New York was actually, they talk about New York as being
beautiful,
so unfriendly and all that. Well, people's doors were open. You could smell what they were cooking, and people would visit back and forth. So we got to know each other and started dating in no time, and we were married by November that year, 79.
Yeah. It was a friend of mine who talked to me about him because I needed some graphic work done for a catalog for an exhibition I was having in one of the galleries in Soho. Mm-hmm. And so I met him that way, but I did not give him the job because he was charging me. And by then I was dating someone else that decided, and some people in the building, they told me, we want to do that for free. But I sent him a friend of mine who actually, he did a job for him. But by the time the catalog was printed, we were starting dating, and he ended up folding that catalog.
Folding and stuffing it. So, yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
So he always remind me of that job that I filed him off, which is not true because I never hired I hired him for the job on the first place. He keeps reminding me, and I ended up folding the catalog from the work you do not give me, you filed me from.
Oh my gosh.
But we start dating, so that was okay.
Yeah.
And now, it proceeded rapidly. Kind of the first big thing, we decided pretty early that we were going to get married. February, March, April.
In March, May, you proposed.
Yeah, in March I proposed. May, for the Memorial Day weekend, one of my nieces was getting married here in Memphis. And so we decided, well, let's go down for that. And we didn't really quite know it at the time, but it was just one of those events, and the timing of it was such that everybody in my family came. Aunts and uncles and cousins from all over showed up. So, and this was her introduction to my family. Was coming in, this poor thing, coming down to Memphis with this entire clan of people there.
Yeah.
And I did very well, I might say.
You did well. I wasn't worried. I wasn't worried about you at all. I, did think about, well, what about all my white relatives? But none of them had ever given any indication of being rednecks. That's not true now, but yeah. But and they were accepting, I think, and it was important because she got to meet my mother, who passed away shortly after that. But yeah, that was a huge deal to, within months, throwing her into this situation where she met this big clan of people that she was marrying into.
And we got married in November. No. From my side, my friends were very concerned because what they could see, it was they could see a separation in terms like, well, you're Puerto Rican and mixed, he's white and Anglo. There's a big difference in there. But what they forgot was that my father was a teacher. and an artist, a musician, a composer, somebody who value culture and value knowledge in a huge way. So was his father.
Yeah, and those are the good characteristics that you found in your father and him, and you, like
he was learning music. He did music, and he trained for a while in a classical instrument. My father was a musician, trained in classic music also.
Yeah.
He loves literature. I love literature. My father loved literature.
I found that as we were in this process of dating and getting to know each other, I almost didn't realize it at first, but it's like you have a little checklist in your head, and she wants children. I want children. Oh, okay. Oh, her father's an artist. That's cool. Oh, yeah. It's like my father. And pretty soon all these little things began to click that we had in common. And pretty soon it was clear what we had to do.
Yeah, people saw nationality and race. I saw a person from which I had so many interests in common. We love movies. We love theater. I did theater when I was in high school. He did theater when he was in high school.
That theater connection is like no other.
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
Yeah. I was dedicated to my craft of being an artist. He was dedicated to his craft of being a writer. So we're both artists.
Yeah.
And so we enjoy an intelligent conversation. Politics or whatever thing there is, even if we do not agree, we do enjoy an intelligent conversation.
That's really all that matters. If you can agree to disagree,
love
is still there.
When you meet somebody that you feel, I'd rather be with this person.
That's the main thing.
I feel so comfortable with this person. I'd rather be with this person than spending more time than any other person I know. When that person become your biggest supporter, when we became our biggest supporters of each other's efforts.
Yeah. May I ask y'all, since we're on the subject of how y'all got to meet and how y'all started loving each other, do y'all remember the specific individual moments that y'all were like, okay, this is going to be the person I'm going to be with for the rest of my life?
Oh my God. He knew before I did.
Okay.
I don't know that I remember a specific moment, but it was just that it was happening pretty quickly. I mean,
very quickly.
You go out on the first date, go to a restaurant. Okay, that's nice, and then you get to know each other a little bit. But then it just picked up steam. And I mean, she tried to break it off once, but it was so fast that I told him, we need some time. I need some time. This is coming along very fast.
It's scary.
Very serious. Yes, I got scared. He was a little bit disappointed that I got scared.
So I just said, okay, well, I'll see you tomorrow.
But he didn't say that. He showed up the next day. And I said, but didn't I tell you that I needed some time? I said, well, yeah, but, you got to
eat. Let's go eat. Yeah.
I realized it when I have a talk to my cousin. He was, he's a dear person to me. I don't see enough of him. I haven't seen him in decades. I haven't seen him for over 40 years. As long as we've been together, I have not seen him. But I know where he is, and we were really close. because from all the people, when I was growing up, a little nerdy and a little into myself, a little much in books, a little into classic music, a little bit into theater, when everybody was making fun of me because I was too much of that, he was defending me. He said, oh, she dressed like a fashionista, when that word was not used. Oh, she is special. And so I always had that affinity. And I told him, I met this guy. He's a white guy, you know, but look at this and this and this and this and this. And he told me, you know what? It seems to me that you really like that person, that you're already in love with that person. And I just said, oh my God, yeah, you're right. And I finished it all. And with that being assured from his part, I said, hey, you know, if I let this guy go, I am the stupid one. You know. And so then my father was very happy because I was the oldest. My two of the sisters were married and I was not. Everybody has stopped asking me. I have met someone for a while now because they just gave up on me. And
well, you were pretty old too.
I was 27. Yeah, you was ready.
That's pretty old. In that
he was ready. I was 27 when we got married. We were on our own. So that certainty that we have done whatever we felt we needed to do.
Yeah, y'all had already had your individual independence. Is that what you're saying? Like you were able to kind of, you know, figure yourself out before y'all like really met and like got.
I have finished my MFA degree, which is a terminal degree for fine arts, and I was working, and I have my own apartment. He was working. He has his own apartment. Had done whatever he wanted to do, you know. So we felt that is. You know, that was done. That part of our life was done.
Yeah.
And so the next one, which came to surprise for me because things happen when you're not expecting them.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking for anyone. He wasn't looking for anyone. We just found each other. I was dating somebody else.
Yeah.
So we found each other, and it was like whoa. One of the things that really scared me was that on our first date, he held my hand. and and he said that he would change some things for me. And I said, what in the world this guy is talking about? I don't want that responsibility of anyone having to change anything for me.
Right.
I just don't want it.
You're used to being independent. You want to be able to change it for yourself.
No. I don't want anyone, you know, I didn't want anyone like that. I just want a person who is secure of himself, which he was, ended up that he was, and secure about myself. And so when my friends got worried or concerned, I just took it like you just don't know this person.
Mm-hmm.
My mother was a caretaker. She was a housewife, but also when she started working, she worked taking care of elderly people, and they adore her. My mother was the most natural person you may want to know. She came from people who worked the land, similar to his background. See, my father was a teacher. I appreciated education, his too. My mother took care of people, and it came from the land. All my family from my mother's side, were coffee growers. They grew up in the mountains. That's where she came from. So this city guy, my father, a black dude, too cool, Because he was a musician and he was an artist and he was playing in radio and TV, starting courting this white lady, very young lady, because my father was almost 20 years older than her. Starting courting her. It was his 5th marriage. We were the 5th family he had.
My goodness.
You know? And this young lady decided to marry this man of a complete different race.
Yeah.
Against her family.
Yeah.
You know, against all odds, and made this marriage. They both died within a month of each other.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And they have all of us. And my father was my biggest supporter, and so was my mother on her own way. My father took me to the university. I was the first graduate from college, and the only one so far in my family with a terminal degree. I think now I have a niece who also have a master's, you know. But I came from a trailblazer type of family.
That's exactly what I was saying in my head as you were telling me. So I was like, man,
Yeah.
years, like.
My father adored theater and adored concerts and adored movies, and I was the one he took with. He said, "Dress up, Maritza, we're going to a concert." Or he would come and pick me up at the theater, and the people will say, "You are the daughter of Maritza Dávila, this famous musician? I didn't know you were, she was your daughter." You know, so I grew up surrounded with people who knew my father, and they stopped us at every corner to talk to him. And I was at awe of all of these people who knew my father. I was going to the TV to watch him play the guitar. I was going to the radio. I listened to my father on the radio. I watched him on TV. I knew all the international touring and all the important people he knew, you know. So, you know, and my mother was the biggest supporter and the caretaker, and it was so much love.
Yeah.
Because she was so special, such an amazing, talented cook.
Yeah.
She passed that on to her, by the way.
So that's where I come from, for these 2 human beings, talented on his own right, and with his force and dramas and chaos and lovelessness and all of the stuff together. So looking back during this conversation, we had such an upbringing together. I mean, we came from a very well-established family.
Yeah, you were loved and you had
family. Worked together, yes. So that was our example. And so when I decided to get married, I didn't decide to marry somebody like my father. I decided to get married because I was old enough to this person to whom I could share so much with.
Yeah.
And that is so much fun to be with.
Yeah.
We do have fun together.
We do.
I can tell y'all have fun together.
You know, it's even cooking, we have fun together. He's becoming my sous chef in the kitchen.
Okay.
He doesn't cook, but he dice so good, so well. He knows how to dice.
And I know how to work that dishwasher.
And he knows that, and he knows that if I cook, he takes care of the
cleans. He gets to use the dishwasher very well.
And we have been willing to grow with each other regardless of our differences.
Yeah.
We have been willing to grow with each other, and we have gone high and lows in our lives together. And we have managed always to end up on the other side and appreciate each other even more so because of the experience.
Yeah. It makes it so unique and rich, and Gosh, like, just hearing your story, it's been so inspiring. I'm like as you're saying these things, like, I'm like reflecting on my own life, and I'm like, wow, like similarities and differences, but like mostly similarities. And I was like, it's almost like you trusted your gut after a bit to continue the relationship that y'all now have now. But it was mostly from your understanding each other's humanity first and foremost.
Yeah, that was it.
Came from that transcends racial, appearances or anything. Like, looking at the core values that your parents have instilled in both of you, y'all were able to see that and recognize, oh my gosh, like, great foundations in both places. Let's put this together and make it even bigger foundation, like.
Yeah. Even now, being so stressed with what I'm doing and what he's trying to accomplish. Yeah. There's no day that I not say, how did I get so lucky? Or sometimes I tell him, how do we get this lucky? To find each other.
Yeah.
When you see so many other people not making it, because after we get married, we have like a roller coaster of friends getting married.
Oh, apparently we inspired.
Y'all inspired other people to get married, but those people didn't have to do the work that y'all did to get to where you
any of those survived. Yeah.
No, I think that maybe one of the couples, and we went to so many weddings before we got married.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was my friend's wedding, his friend's wedding. Well,
Yeah.
And I was.
Oh, you know what? We haven't yet told her the story about our wedding.
Oh, no. Come on. Yes, tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Not one, not two, but 3 weddings. Yes.
Okay. Tell me about it.
We did the whirlwind thing. We said, all right, we're going to get married. And so we have all our friends here in New York. We want them to be at the wedding. All of my family is in Memphis. We want them to be at the wedding. But all of her family is in San Juan, Puerto Rico. How are we going to do this? There's no way we get them all in one place. No. Yeah. So we said, first in November, we'll get married at City Hall in New York.
For one thing, that would take care of the legal aspect.
So that
was done.
That was done. And we had some friends with us when we did that, just went to City Hall.
Yeah.
And it was a lot, and it was so much fun. And it was a weekend of Thanksgiving, and then we took the train to Boston because that's our favorite place to go.
Yeah. So then, to take care of everybody else, we said, now we will schedule a wedding ceremony in Memphis 1 month after the one in New York. Mm-hmm. And then a week after that, we'll go to San Juan and get married there.
Because what happened was that when I called my family and told them we just got married, my family said, oh, and we didn't see you getting married. And I said, well, if you want to, you can go over there and get married again.
This was one of the advantages, was that each family could do it the way they wanted to.
Yeah.
So
I love it though.
We came to Memphis. My father is a minister, so he did the ceremony.
Yeah.
And at a local church here. And then we went back to the house, and I have a nephew who is a chef, and he made a unique cake. I mean, there was a swan. There's a swan swimming in a
raspberry lake.
Raspberry lake.
This was a little strange. Raspberry lake.
It was so good. So, at any rate, our family got to do all of that, and then we hopped on a plane. It took my dad actually, and he was, when we went to San Juan, he was my best man there, and we got married in the Catholic church.
His mother asking, you should go. He says, you should meet the family. She was already poor, on poor health.
Yeah.
His mother told him, you should go.
Yeah.
And meet the rest of the family.
So Dad did. So, we went to San Juan and then had our 3rd wedding ceremony there. Mm-hmm. So we had a civil servant, a Protestant minister, and a Catholic priest.
Uh-huh.
we've often wondered if we shouldn't have gotten a rabbi in there somewhere.
I don't know.
But maybe still. You never know.
Maybe my little, whatever little bit of Jewish I have on me, perhaps.
She's got more Jewish in her than I do in me.
It's so negligible. The indigenous part is more.
So I have another question. I have all these questions. Thankfully, y'all have answered a lot of the questions that people have been asking just from your talking. I love the way that y'all discuss. Like, I don't even want to like get into it because I'm just like, y'all just conversate so well. Converse, whatever. I use this. It's the same meaning. I just say different things. Anyway, I wanted to know, because I also thought this was a very interesting question that we've gotten. So have there, well, no, I'm not going to answer that question yet. Were there, and I'm going to ask both of you this question, but were there any biases that you had to unlearn about each other that you realized were problematic about each other during any of this? Like, was there anything that, I mean, it can come from both ways. Like, it just be problematic in the sense that it's just problematic from like your perspective, whether it actually is problematic as a systemic, you know.
I have something. I have something, but it has nothing to do with prejudice, but maybe more culturally than anything else.
Yeah.
And it has to do that when I have problems, but I see that also being said about men and women. But being a Latina, I don't hold back. I just speak out my mind, and sometimes very emotionally.
Yeah.
He has a tendency of doing the reverse. He have a hard time sometimes doing confrontations.
Yeah.
And he had learned to speak up his mind more.
Mm-hmm.
And I have learned to be a little bit more, to think it before talking, and maybe to tame a little bit my emotional Latina side, or that I'm not always successful on it.
Yeah.
You know, that stressed him and ended up stressing me because I see him how stressed he is, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm really bad at holding emotions.
Okay. So what you're basically saying is that there's a cultural difference in the way that you guys express each other's, like,
I don't even know. I don't even know. Is that what it is?
I'm not sure we ever even really thought of it so much as being cultural, because yes, there are the tropes about the reserved Englishman and the fiery Latina.
Yeah.
And all that.
Yeah.
But you look through relationships anywhere, anytime. Very often, it's just that opposites do attract. So one partner is a little more reserved, the other one is very outgoing.
And I'm so happy that it's that way. Because this man can say to me, okay, you're feeling that way, go ahead and climb the wall. And when you have finished climbing the wall, you can come down and then we can talk.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
And I can count that he will allow me to do that, and that most of the time he will be okay with it.
Yeah.
And it can be all fired up, and he allows me to be that way because at times also he realized you're right.
Mm-hmm.
So opposites do attract. I think opposites are necessary. I could not live with anyone like me. It would drive me bonkers. I don't want anyone like me. I want somebody like him. See?
Well, like with any relationship, it's finding that balance. I can't really think of anything that I felt that I needed to change my way of thinking about, partly because I don't let myself get into a way of thinking without there being a good reason. So I have principles, for example, and I wouldn't change those for anybody. But if I think our relationship was more about discovering things about the other, and then saying, oh, more. Music is one. Now she has this whole library of tunes from Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic and Cuban, all the Latin music that I had, just a little bit of experience with. But she had this huge library, and so I got to appreciate that and learn about that. So it's things like that where you tend more to expand, where you need to expand rather than pull back, because we try not to carry any prejudices. If you do, I mean, for me, it's always been having some sort of prejudice. I think about things first, which is why in some discussions I won't say anything. I want to wait and see, what's going on with this. That I think is actually partly a journalist tool. When I interview somebody, I have my little intro telling them this is what I'm doing, this is the story I want to write and all that, and then kind of give them a lead-off question and let them carry it from there. And very often people will be talking about themselves, so that's not hard to do. They will gladly do that. So that's kind of how it's been for me. That's when I walk into a room, if I'm covering an event of some sort, I just stay in the background, stay in the shadows, watch how the room is. Reading the room is what you do, and then you see where the interest is, the power, where interesting things are happening. And so similarly in a relationship, if you don't really know something, or if you have carried some sort of belief for a while, or presumption, really, would be more like it, not necessarily prejudice, but I just always assumed that Latin women were fill in the blank. Then you go and then you get to know them a little better, and you find out, okay, yeah, I'm going to put that one aside.
I think from the beginning there was such an admiration and respect, mutual admiration and respect, because we allow for each one of us a space to do what they need to do. At times I'm needing him and he's not available, and I go, but I said, okay, I have to wait for him. I have to wait his time. And I ended up solving it myself. And then I called him and I said, okay, I decided to do this. And he said, well, okay, I think that works. I said, okay, confirmation. But my space and his space is sacred to each one of us.
Yeah.
And so we work very hard to give that a space. So there might be times in which we only see each other for lunch or dinner, isn't it? Because even working in the house, the two of us, I'm in my studio, he's in his office working, and that is the time that we meet. When Jon goes into my studio and says, do you have any thoughts about dinner? And I say, okay, give me a minute. I'm in the middle of something. And I'll be there. Or I tell him, why don't you start this and this and this? Or I tell him, I have no idea. And he said, well, what about if I make burgers? I said, fantastic. I'm too busy here today. And it's always been that way. When the kids were small and I get into my studio and they needed me, Jon will take care of that. He said, leave your mom alone. She's working in the studio. I never felt like I could not do something because I didn't have somebody to help me. I have gone to studios, workshops, and stuff like that to work since Joshua was maybe 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I would go, he took care of him. For whatever time I have to go and work.
So I've actually got another meeting in about 10 minutes or so.
Oh, yeah.
You have some more questions?
Actually, no, I had one more, and like y'all literally answered all of them. And this is actually a good one to just kind of wrap everything up. So the topics that we all discussed, we basically discussed about everything that's going on that happened in your past. Is there anything that you maybe wish that you had discussed maybe 40 years ago when y'all met that you haven't done today? I think that's the best way to answer that question. So like with everything going on today, yeah, is there anything you maybe wish that you had discussed 40 years ago that you didn't? That now is resurfacing now because of everything going on that, you know, you were like, oh man, we could have talked about this 40 years ago. Has there been anything?
No.
I can't think of anything that's like momentous. I mean, people who really have it together, you know, at the beginning of their relationship, they will do all the sort of unpleasant things like make a will and do all of that planning. We still have not done that. Now, I have a list of things that we need to do, and that's been on the list for about 40 years.
And we talk it up. Once in a while, it comes in conversations. Oh, yeah, that's that thing that we need to do. Okay.
Right. But in this day and age, you know, with all this going on, where, that would be something that is really more of a priority.
Yeah.
I don't know. We haven't.
No. We knew what we were exposing ourselves when we got married. We went into this marriage with eyes wide open.
Y'all were very open from the get-go, so you
I told Jon, you send pictures of me to your family.
Mm-hmm.
And I took pictures of him to my family.
We've been also fortunate in that I got into journalism there back in the late 70s when it existed. And I was able to move from New York and get a job at the newspaper here in Memphis and worked there for 25 years, and then another 10, 15 years now since then doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel very fortunate now to be working in print media full time, and that's certainly a lot more rare now than it was then, but we've always been kind of fortunate that way. Maritza had good timing. The year that we moved to Memphis, she went to the Memphis College of Art and audited a couple of courses. And then the next season or next semester, the printmaking instructor quit. Here you have with her master's degree.
I was there. I knew about the place. For me at that point, Memphis was a big interrogation mark. And I have lots of apprehensions because of what you heard about the South. Ended up that being married to him and looking the way I look allowed people to know me before assuming things about who I was. Teaching at the college, which is a very open community of artists, allowed me to do and to grow as a teacher, which is my other passion.
So she was at the College of Art for 36 years. So that turned out okay.
Sure did.
And now I'm part-timing at the University of Memphis because the professor no walkout. He took an early, he decided to retire. And since I've been in this town for so long, people know me and know my work and know, and they know about my integrity as an artist and as a professional and as a teacher. They call me and say, we need you. So I am teaching one course. Next semester will be 2 courses. I don't know how long I want to do it, but I have my studio and I'm being very busy with one thing and the other since my retirement, including traveling.
So we've been fortunate.
Yeah.
It looks like you're living exactly how you have wanted to live for yourself, and that is all that really matters in the end. Like that is goals for me, like thinking about where I will be hopefully in the next couple of decades. I'm hoping the same thing, so
yeah. The rest is icing on the cake.
Yes.
Plus I'm Santa Claus.
Yeah, that too.
There is
you're married. She's also married to Santa Claus, so she can get anything she wants.
And we're also collaborators. I mean, we have collaborated. As a matter of fact, we just got an award, and we are collaborating on a project for the Urban Arts Commission.
Okay.
Yeah, some poetry I've written and photos I took and a book that she's going to make and a film that we're going to do.
And images of both our works.
I love it.
We have been collaborating on and off for a few years now.
Yeah.
For some places to raise funds, like the Child Advocacy Center. We have worked together on that, and so we are learning every day. We are learning how to collaborate with less stress. That's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
Keeps us sane.
Keep us
sane. Yes.
And never take each other for granted. Never.
Y'all are absolutely amazing, inspiring. I cannot wait for everyone to listen to just hearing your story and everything that you just brought to this community. I don't know if y'all realize how much you just brought. Like, it's still for me, like, I'm glad that I'm recording this and I get to go back and listen to all this, and I'm just going to be shaking my head like, I cannot believe I have been blessed to meet both of you and to know both of you.
Well, we are
so much.
Very fortunate to know you, and again, I admire so much what you're doing. So thank you for having us. It's an honor.
Thank you. And let me say goodbye to everybody, because I'm still talking for a little bit, but I want to let everyone know that I'll give more information on just how you can, follow up with Maritza and Jon. But y'all, as I've said before, like, when it comes to self-awareness, you have to have self-reflection. These two have done that before they even met. So they were able, like, the conversation, just the dynamic that they are embodying, and like I am like literally feeling through the screen right now, is it's exactly as an embodiment of how I'm hoping that I can be. And I mean, I know I probably am at this point, but like, at that, like, I'm hoping I can stick with it. I don't want anything in my life to come in my way that I lose what I already have. And they are a great example. They are the perfect example, I should say, that I can definitely look up to. I'm so thankful to know y'all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.